So we kick things off, and the first thing in each this is a peace game phase. Remember, I'm only playing 1 year though of this. The first thing in the peace turn is a random events phase. I thought I screwed up because if it started with a war, it would start in the fall. So I'm randomizing the order in which people draw their random events, and Russia and Spain pick 2. Secret Police allows you to cancel events. These are hidden events, but I'm keeping them in the country to help me realize where something is, because with 10 powers and without little player mats or anything like that in place, this is the best way that I can keep track of things. I may end up, keeping people over on the sidelines as I've got their feudal core there. And then this one was an indiscipline result. Now, I've pulled the random events out. They really do belong in the player aids, and unfortunately they're in French. But that allows you to play it on an enemy military leader and make him charge into battle against an enemy unit, and you kind of get to control his movement. Unfortunately, the third play was by Sweden, and we got the remix event. That sucks up all the other events. I think this is an automatic one. Most of them require a game play. All players reveal their secret random event markers and discard them. All public events drawn this turn are ignored and discarded. So, yeah, everything goes back in the pot, gets reshuffled, and everybody gets a fresh random event for the turn. Kind of a waste on the first turn, but, well, I've gotten that far. So I'll start over again. It doesn't really matter that people went first. Their events have been canceled. Total waste on the first turn for this to have come up, just in terms of mechanical efficiency, but we'll start over. Okay, and first new event, let me make sure I'm doing things right if they're not all drawn at the same time. Yeah, it's not really clarified here. Anyway, the importance is because I started over with Russia, and they got an event that looks different from all the others. It's got this Grim Reaper on it. It's a plague. And we roll a 20-sider. I don't one of them down. I'm not used to using them very much, to see which power it affects. And it's going to affect Turkey. I'll put this somewhere in a used pile. And what does it do? The affected power loses a third of its regional revenue, including any extra revenues and commercial taxes, until the discard random event is drawn. Leave the plague marker on the affected power. Ooh. All right, so Turkey's got some serious problems here now. They're the one with the casus belli against Austria, which they probably will choose not to use. And at this point, well, maybe Austria is not so... Maybe Austria is interested in trying to gain Hungarian territories, or maybe they're interested in playing in the world as a whole. Spain got the next public event, and this is not a good one either. It's a commercial depression. Their trading company must make a defiance check with a +1 modifier per eliminated trading fleet. All right, well, I think they're at their structure in terms of the fleet. I could try to look that up. Involves finding all these stupid loose sheets. Finding my scenario rules again and looking up. I think some of the... No, everybody's got their full structure. It's in the war fleets that you're not up to full structure. So they're at full structure, which means that they don't get a +1 of any kind. On a 6 or more, their structure is going to decrease by 2, and they lose their fleets. Now, the event roll is on a 2 or more, though. So first they have to roll to see if they get a 2 or more to see if the event affects them. It does. And now they get Now I think this only affects the person who drew it. And now the other is if they get a 6, they're screwed. They're not. And this does go in the discard pile. I'm looking at all the events one at a time to kind of show as they happen. Once we get more into the game, I'll probably just give a report on what happens during a turn. But as I'm, getting used to the game, I want to capture my thoughts, thinking maybe they're some of the reason that people watch such videos. All right, I'll keep going with events and see. Okay, so like EU, I'm finding myself having to keep track of things on a log for the turn. We have Turkey's plague. Prussia got this inflation, which is going to cost them an extra 1 per unit recruitment. Holland got, I didn't worry about the Spanish one because it had no effect. Holland got a famine, which has the same effect as the plague, except it only affects for this turn. However long this turn may be, remember, if this wasn't my special rule for the first turn, it could be many years because it's a peace turn. But that peace turn still only has 1 income phase, so it doesn't really have a greater effect being a peace turn than a war turn. And I've marked that. This should be discarded immediately, but I'm keeping track of it with that, just as I have with Prussia, with their inflation, and the Turkish one, well, this is special. It gets to stay on the board. That's pretty. Other players, so not all of these were selected by the player they picked. So, for example, Turkey got one that allows them to make an alliance outside the normal realm of the game so that they can kind of do it. I don't remember what the restrictions are. I just read it, but they can do it during the control segment, even if the miner's already at war, provided you have an annexed to hereditary region. I don't know if that'll pull it out of a war. I assume so. I assume it wouldn't force you into the war, but who knows? Because someone may actually have wanted to go to war with that miner, and I feel like that's kind of one of those things where maybe the power that is at war with it, or powers that are at war with it, have the right to decide whether or not to let it stay there. Anyway, it gives you a special bonus and a better chance of alliance. Let's see. The Austrians got this. It gives them greater resources from their taxation, 1 extra buck per province that they tax. That's pretty valuable for them. They're probably going to use that, especially if they're planning on a war this turn. With the Turkish situation, they probably do want to get involved in something. I just have to think of what. The English, they got the bonus one for England, perfidy. That allows them to, it's got an interesting set of wording. You can either cancel the PP loss due to breaking an alliance, which is kind of cool, or you can break an alliance and make a separate peace. You still lose the PPs, but then you can re-enter the war even on the other side, or any war on any later turn with a free casus belli. This is impressive. Now, for most people, it's kind of hard to do, but England gets to get away with it on a 2 or more. Perfidious Albion, of course. What do we have here? Holland also got, Sursaut National. What was that? A national resurgence that allows them to recruit, to make more recruits. Not a terribly useful chit for them. If they've been invaded, they can recruit 1 regiment in each controlled hereditary region. I don't know why they wouldn't be able to do that anyway. Well, when is it played? Well, it doesn't really say. Well, maybe it will. And then the Swedes got this recruitment of mercenaries that allows them to buy mercenary units for $1 each. I don't know if, I think I have most of my mercenaries on the board. Maybe all of them. The mercenaries are kind of bonus units, but they cost more, so I wanted to have them out. So that's probably not a terribly valuable counter for them at this stage in the game. So that's all the random events. Now we go to the commerce phase, okay? let's work our way through that. All right. So our sequence is people can change their commercial policy. Now remember, doing this has a prestige cost. They probably don't want to pay this. They got to select their policy early on. Then the next thing is they can move their trading fleets, starting with the smallest companies first. Now I have to kind of compare and probably set up my little chits for who's biggest and smallest. And then we get to roll for profits and collect those profits along with the taxation for the profit for the if you've got a tax policy in place, the actual country gets the cash instead of just the company. And then we can use the cash from the companies to replace trading fleets and decide on secretly a dividend policy. And there might be a confidence crisis. Now, there's two ways a confidence crisis happens. One is through high competition. The other is by paying less dividend than your structure. So we've got a lot of things to try to do here. I'm going to have to think about this a little bit, and then I'll kind of probably come back and show some of what I'm doing in real time. Trying to keep track of the numbers, the money on paper, is just not going to work. It moves too much too often. So I've relegated myself to creating a little company and royal treasuries for each of the countries. It would be kind of nice if I had some color markers to do that. I could use these guys or something else, but I think I can read these. I'm just thinking if I colored the little squares with a pencil or something, but I don't think I have enough colored pencils or markers or anything like that to really be able to cover this entire span of so many different colors of game pieces, especially when I got pink and red that are almost alike. Anyway, so nobody wanted to move their ships. Holland actually thought about it because they went late. Sweden considered it because they got kind of invaded here, but they don't have anything that's going to work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll for each thing to see which fleet comes out on top. Now remember, there's 6 spaces for each fleets, but as it stands, none of the competitions are between more than 2 fleets. So here, I'll roll like an odd even, and what I'll do. Okay, so even, so Holland won, I'm going to leave them on top, and I'll just, then after I resolve all the trading rolls, then I'll add up how much cash is taken in, and that'll go into the company treasuries minus any taxation, which I have to keep track of all that crap too, right? And see where we end up in terms of that. And then after all those profit rolls, what do I get to do? I get to build new trading fleets, which is going to require a test in each case because that would mean expanding your trade. Nobody's going to have lost any ships at this point. And then we go to the bidding after we try to build up our company structure, because nobody's going to have lost any fleets. Then everybody puts a secret bid on how much they want to pay out in terms of dividends. And remember, there's a lot of rules there as to what the prestige is going to be there. Okay, so first the die rolls, and then I'll collect the income. I'll probably come back some way midway through all of this to show how things are done. This is what we resolved after the fleets. So all the guys on top are the guys we're actually going to collect. Now we'll cover England first to see what they actually collect, mainly because I have them here and it's fairly easy. So let's shoot down here. England's got a cotton and nobody controls that. So a cotton will give them $4, and with free trade in play, they're going to get all of that money. This is the English Trading Company here. What else does England have? Well, they have a manufacturer and a tissue. Okay, Manufacturer's worth 3, tissue's worth 2. That's $5, but 2 of that goes in tax to the Royal Treasury, and the other 3 is going to go to the company. And we keep looking, nothing over there. Over in France, I have wine and cereal. Let's see what those bring me. Wine gets me 3, cereal gets me 3, so that's $6. I'm going to get 4 of that, and the French have a tax policy. I have an exclusive policy in England, not a tax, but the taxation occurs anyway. We keep going here. I lost the competition, so I don't get anything. You don't lose ships from competition. It's not like EU there. Here I won against Turkey. I have a cotton. I think I already looked this up. Cotton's worth 4. So I'm going to be pulling in some $15 for my trading company. That's a nice pile of money. Of course, I'm going to be figuring out some kind of bid. And now I do that for each of the countries that have trade fleets as I go. France didn't do as well. They pulled in 8. Now I'm on Spain. Spain's a little interesting, primarily because they have the exclusive and they have the 2 gold that they win. Now gold for them produces, and I think for everybody, actually it only produces 3 each for them. Because of the special Spanish rules, $3 go to the Royal entirely, and then the other one is split. The $3, 2 of it go to their company, and 1 of it goes into the Royal for the taxation. Now I gotta figure out the other Spanish fleets. So they have like the art here and the cereal here. I think that's all they're capturing. Did they lose one? Yeah, they lost a timber up there. So we quickly look this up. An art's worth 3 and a cereal's worth 3. Now, what was tissue's worth to them? Only 2, which is why they didn't go for it. These are both taxed, so their company's going to pull $4 in, and the country taxes, because they have the exclusive, the company taxes for 2. Surprisingly, Holland pulled in buku money here, some $26 for their company, and they've got the exclusive, so they actually managed to grab some cash on a couple of places where they control the market as well, that they peeled out of the company, which is fine for them now. Looking at it though, free trade is kind of interesting, because here's the thing. If you've got free trade going and you win the, you get the production off of it, you're taking less money out of your company in your home ports. However, your home ports may not be where you're most interested in trading. You know, we see, for example, the Spaniards didn't go for this wine port here. Why not? Why did they want the wood? The wood's worth 4 to them, I think. Spain's on the other side of... I think the pairings here, like Spain and Prussia, those are meant to be the pairs that you play in a 5-player game, which is why I haven't cut the things apart. That's not clarified anywhere. So yeah, the wood was worth 2 and 4, and the wine's only worth 2. But I could have gotten a guaranteed price with my exclusive on the wine trading. Of course, that wouldn't all go to the treasury, to the corporation. Okay, now we're allowed to build trading fleets. Well, this is going to require some thinking, because trading fleets are a valuable idea, but they can be hunted down. Now, building new trading fleets is going to run me, trading fleets in war. Yeah, once you're at war, you can't trade with something that's controlled by the enemy. Once you're in the commercial phase, during segment E, yeah, it's $3 to replace trading fleets, but buying structure costs 5, and you have to worry about getting a 5 or a 6 on the yellow die, and the red die has to be lower than the yellow die. So, at best, even if you have a Navy minister, you only have a 1/3 chance of actually getting that. That's $5 you're going to spend. So that's kind of a hard call. Now, is this done in order? It has to be. It's supposedly simultaneous. The only way you can do things simultaneously in this game, well, there's two ways you could do it. You could do it simultaneous in the sense of if one person does it, then sort of like a Pax Britannica type of situation, which we covered earlier. If one person does it, that sucker up there. Cool game, but flawed because of that kind of timing. If one person does something, then somebody can do something in reaction. But it's kind of a, well, how do you decide when that phase is done, essentially? So you have to implement some sort of timing mechanism into it of some kind. It doesn't have to be a clock. It could be a clock that gets reset each time somebody takes an action, or it could just be, an agreement. If somebody starts counting, that means somebody better do something once somebody decides it's time to start counting, which I kind of like, actually. But another option would be to do it with secret bidding. Now, that doesn't work in PAX, but there's no reason it wouldn't work here. I'm really kind of flummoxed by the idea of how to apply this here. I think I'll probably do a secret bidding with it. Everybody with a trading company is going to attempt this. I want to note one thing. You might think, well, Austria's got a lot of money coming to them. Maybe they should establish a trading company, but they can't. The only way you can establish a new trading company in this game, if you don't have one already, or if your status goes down to 0, is if you and you have no cash in your company, if you have a territory that's capable of collecting taxes, if it starts collecting taxes, instead of putting it in your country's royal treasury, you can put it in your company treasury there. So now let's take a look at what we have. Everybody's taking a shot at this. Again, we'll start with England. England has no ministers that I see. No leaders at all. Interesting. Okay, so they have this normal die roll here, which I have to find again. The yellow die has to be a 5 or a 6. It is not, so they just wasted their cash. Likewise, Holland. Holland has an M, so they succeed with which die? The red die. So now they need a 5 or 6 on the yellow. They get it, and that means I'm going to be marking up Holland's company structure, if I can find it, which is kind of poorly written here, from 10 up to 11. That gets the Dutch a new ship, which is going to be a pain because this is hard for me to move. That ship is under construction. I'll put it out here. And, they got a bonus out of it. And they spent their $5. And we'll check the other 3 countries off. Okay, so, Holland got a bonus. France got a bonus. They also had a naval minister. And Sweden got a bonus without a naval minister. Okay. Now it's time to decide on dividends. Now let's look at the procedure that I'm going to make to decide on this. Let's look for England first because they're what I did first. But this is done as a secret bid. So if I pay twice as much as my structure, I get a political point. Now my current English structure is 7. Do I have 14? Of course, other people will be taking these thoughts in mind too. This money is not terribly useful to the company, except in terms of building new ships, which, that's $5 you can spend a turn. You can't spend more than that. Or in terms of giving out the dividends. So 14 sounds like a good bid to begin with. if I pay more than all other companies or pay more dividend than a company with operational trading fleets. Well, with more operational trading fleets. Well, I think the Dutch are going to spend 20. So, I think my 14 is a safe bid, and that's what I'm going to put into play. Might I want to spend more? Yeah. Let's see. Do we go up to 15? No. We're going to go with a 14 bid. And as with the fleets itself, I'm just going to put that bid up here and put the rest of the cash on hand. Now, I have less cash on hand than I had last turn. So I'm going to have to make a better profit next turn to do as well in terms of dividends. But that's okay. I'm, just looking at this for the one-turn situation here. I'm hoping to actually be able to take the Dutch down through military means rather than economic. All right, let me look at some of the other companies and countries and make my decisions on them, and then we'll come back and look to see how the prestige actually is evaluated. So my bids, well, we did England's 14. The Dutch actually put 22 in play, because remember they increased their structure up to an 11. Likewise, the French put 6 in play to match their structure. They can't get double. Spain matched its structure, and Sweden had to spend all 4 of their bucks to match their structure. Okay, so who paid at least twice as much as their structure? That would be England and Holland. So they each are going to get a point of prestige. Nobody paid none. Did anybody pay more than all other companies, or paid more than a company that had more operational fleets? Well, no, because all of the weaker fleets just matched what they needed, so none of them beat that. But Holland paid more than anyone else, so they get an extra PP for that. And they're up to 17. 20 is your maximum prestige that you can have. That's 20 victory points a turn, though. So like Empires in Arms, you want to keep, and to some extent EU, where you want to keep your stability high. But like Empires in Arms, you get a lot of points by keeping yourself high on this chart. Okay, and finally, did a company pay less than a company with less trading fleets? No. And C and D are only worth 1 each, so if you match any of those. Nobody paid less than their structure, so nobody gets a penalty. That would be a big deal. So otherwise, this money just all disappears, and we'll put that in the bank. Before I get back to that, let's see. That's the end of this commercial phase. I'm going to put my little thing to indicate that we're going into the diplomacy phase, because I think that's it for tonight for me. It's awfully. So now we're walking into what essentially is the first diplomacy phase. The diplomacy phase is very freeform, but nothing real happens in it. The real stuff happens later in the political phase. This is just a get together, chat, try to figure out what you want to do. The next step is the neutrality phase. Because this is a general peace term, it exists here. It wouldn't exist during a war turn. The neutrality phase, I'm going to be rolling a die for each minor. But to really understand and to see if it falls out of its current orbit, to see if I understand, what I want to do during the diplomacy phase, what kind of deals I want to cut in advance, I kind of have to jump ahead to the political phase. Now, the basic goal there is going to be that the players are going to be working on is the alliances that they're discussing and what position they're kind of in there. There are a few options for free casus belli right now. And then there are some expendable casus belli, some normal casus belli, which could also take place. The free ones is France against Spain, which I believe the French desire. England against Holland, which I believe England desires because they have the military edge currently in facing the Dutch. So they may be able to knock out some of their commercial ability and win this great naval war there. So that one's desirable to them. Turkey against Austria. Turkey's got a lot of problems right now. I don't think they're going to take it, which means Austria may feel a certain freedom towards looking somewhere else. On the other hand, what if Turkey counts on that and declares a war? So Austria may actually be looking more towards, can I take Turkey up? Then we have Russia, I believe, has it against Poland. I'm not sure which way it goes. Let me see if I can find my scenarios here. Yeah, Russia has one on Poland. Now, that leaves... There's also a couple of wild card players. Prussia, which currently has an event, and if I can find my sheet of paper, they have this inflation event. They may not want to really get involved in a war. Their army's not very big. There are things that they desire. And Sweden, and speaking of which, Holland has a weakness as well, which makes the English attack more desirable. Sweden is sort of this loose cannon out here that could gain something on either Russia or Poland. And in order to think about any of these, I kind of want to see who's got bonuses here. Now, we already know France's bonus and Spain's bonus as to the regions. Holland, and for that matter, Sweden, is interested in keeping Flanders Spanish. I think that's what this says. So there's no real desire for Holland to own Flanders, nor for Sweden to hold Flanders. They want to keep it in Spanish hands during this scenario, which is kind of an interesting... Sweden actually has some desire, perhaps, to help Spain at this point. Austria wants to regain parts of Hungary, which I think means they want to go to war. Russia wants to regain the two Polish regions within what will become Russian home territory. Prussia doesn't seem to care. Prussia has no demands at this point. In fact, what Prussia would like to do is get the kingdom, but that costs Austria something, and Austria feels like they may be able to win this war without it. So there is there are several possibilities for Sweden to maybe kind of gain things. Now, another thing to keep in mind, though, is ports. So, for example, there'd be a port available that could be controlled by Sweden on the Serial in Pomerania. What is this? I can't even read this. Pomox. Or Pommern. I don't know, because we've got this little Pomerania. Oh, you know what? No. I was thinking maybe these were separate areas. Or were the same area. Yeah, I don't know what to do there. So yeah, it's a kind of most of the countries kind of have their goal in place. I'm kind of seeing this leaning of Sweden towards Spain, though, and that's something I have to think about. my mind is bringing me to what is kind of a difficult situation here. What seems, maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but what seems to be a contradiction built into the rules. You're not allowed to sail out to these colonies if you don't have a trading fleet. This is off topic in a sense, but it came to my mind. On the other hand, you're not allowed to build a trading company until you own one of those colonies. What that means is, and can work a tax towards it. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you're allowed to divert the money from your national taxes. So I'll have to look that up towards building a trading company. That would kind of make sense if you could use your taxation in your national territory to fund this great expedition towards taking over something. Yeah. Because if you can only tax colonial properties towards the trading company, how are you ever going to get one? You can't send your troops out there. You can't send your fleets out there in order to do it. As a reference, these rules are impossible, and I can't find my answer for that. I found it a corresponding rule having to do with normal fleets, but nothing to do with the taxation money going into it. I know I found it earlier, I don't know where. I did find the list of the kings and when they were born, which is in the annexes and scenarios that was not translated. Many of the annexes are, but like in many cases in this rule book, the charts and tables aren't. And I wish that had been clarified somewhere in the beginning, just saying, hey, you know, there's cases where there's charts and tables that have been omitted from the translation to save space. They're in your rule book because it took a little while and certainly hurt my comprehension or my ability to comprehend the rules by not having that little piece of information there. I'm going to do it the way that makes sense to me, that you can form a trading company if you tax out of taxes from your home country's ports. You could shift that into your trading company cash flow. Once you get $10 in there, you can take a shot at forming a trading company. It's basically diverting the national taxes, because as far as I understand, you can't ever get one of those except if somebody cedes one to you, basically, which might happen as part of a peace. It might be possible that you could get a territory that you haven't conquered if someone else has. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, here we are back in the diplomacy phase. Well, yeah. And I haven't really gotten anywhere because I'm chasing those rules, and I need a break from the rules at this point. I'm continuing to work my way through things. I keep finding little issues. So, for example, I didn't know where Pomerania should be. It's part of Prussia's national homeland. When I counted up Prussia's income, they need that as part of their territory. That extra buck is included in their current income. So I'm assuming that that simply is missing here and should be included in their list of starting territories. There's going to be a lot of interjections like this. I'm still working on the negotiations in my head. Basically, everything's decided except for Sweden. Sweden right now is, turning to France and saying, look, my interests are in supporting Spain, but if you're not interested in taking Flanders, perhaps we can come to some sort of arrangement that's of more value to me. In particular, what kind of arrangement? Well, what Sweden most would like is a colonial territory, because they have high resource, more valuable resources than most areas on the map, which would give them almost an assured taxation bonus, if nothing else. Now, once I find Sweden's card, what are they most interested in? They're most interested in manufacturing. They can't find that. Gold, sugar, tissue. Well, they don't want to take Flanders from Spain, which has the tissue. They would actually like that. But beyond that, one of the most appealing things to them would be, say, the Manila gold here. Which, if they could get that, they could impose at least their taxation. They might even go to exclusive, although the fact that they have a lot of trade that they're not terribly interested in, that people are giving them a buck for, is, somewhat advantageous. Anyhow, I'm not quite sure where we're falling with this. Sweden does want to get into the war. So, remember how I said, well, Prussia's going to kind of sit this one out. Sweden doesn't want to sit this turn out. They also don't particularly want to get involved in the Russian-Polish wars. Although they have a lot of interests in that area, all they'd be gaining is maybe some tax value if, say, they took a territory off Poland or something. And the danger of strengthening one of those two at this early stage, they'd rather let them play it out and then try to play the counterweight against them, maybe with support from another country. Spain and France are both rich countries, so they could actually subsidize Swedish military units being built, which would be part of their deal. Spain's a little hesitant about that because currently doing a subsidy involves taking out a national loan, more public debt essentially. And Spain already has this huge debt. So by trying to put a threat on France and saying, look, what I'd really like is to get Manila, that would be very appealing to me because I want to open up the gold market so that I have a chance of getting it and, whatever else. I find that a very desirable option that they're putting forward, just given the situation in the game now. Let me see if France is willing to go with a subsidy and a general agreement of that, as opposed to an almost assured opposition is the way that Sweden's kind of posing it to them. France tells Sweden to jump in a lake. Maybe I'd give you one or the other, but I think that Spain probably isn't going to do this. So now that puts us in a difficult position because we'd really kind of like to be in a stronger position bidding-wise on things. Now, the alternative is, hey, what about Spain? Will you subsidize me and support me in getting a French colonial territory? Spain probably, they're more worried about the subsidy than anything else, but they're going to go along with that. And yes, I'm just doing an odd even here because I don't have enough comfort with the game to make a decision that's really rational here. In both cases, this seems very ahistorical, Sweden interfering over in this kind of war as opposed to being in the Baltic. But they're kind of afraid of touching the Baltic here. So, some of their best interests are in preventing Spain from losing Flanders. So what the heck? All right. So that was diplomacy. We go to the neutrality, and in this case, I gotta look into the rules here. I know I just looked it up a little while ago, but I've been away from the game. And I know Kyle's offered me some suggestions on, semi-binding these, putting them in a report cover or something like that. Those things just don't stay flat for me. I don't know. There may be enough margin that I could, staple the rule set together backwards. One of the other problems is I kind of want the appendixes out of the rules, And unfortunately, that would require printing out another page to have a duplicate, because there's some overlap of where the rules and the appendices start. So I don't know. All right. So now, since this is a general piece, each minor country under control of major power, on a 6, it's going to fall into neutrality at this point. I don't... Yeah, well, we'll roll through them if I can find my dice. All this paper is making a mess. So let me look through my minor allies here. So France has one with the Danes. And with Buda, I don't know who that is, Baden. And the Palatinate. And then Lorraine and Savoy. Ansbach is a special case that I don't have to roll for. Uh-oh. Austria's just lost Savoy as an ally. Poland is actually a royal marriage. I don't remember if there was a special rule about the Polish... shit, now I lost the yellow dye on my carpet and can't find it. Alright, let's see if we got any others. We've got Morocco for Turkey. And they lose Morocco, which probably isn't too big a deal. It's hard to tell again without trying to either look here or into the charts and tables as to how potent each of these is as a minor country. You'd have the same problem with EU or empires in arms for that matter, but those are more familiar to me. So, approaching a game for the first time, it's always painful. I probably give these AWE games more latitude than I should, just because, I don't know, from the very beginning with EU, so many of them have panned out so well compared to other games that I've played. Okay. So now we're in the political phase, which is 6. And here we have the creation and dissolution of alliances. Only one's going to be declared. That's going to be the Spanish Swedish alliance. And I think alliances are forever. Unlike the kind of termed alliance in an EU type game where you say, well, we have an alliance for 15 years and it's defensive only in nature. Here they're just kind of liberally forever. So we're going to write this down. And they each get a point of prestige for this. Yeah, the only way to leave a alliance is to officially break it, and that'll cost you that prestige point that you gained from it. So it's probably not something you terribly want to do. No peace proposal, no peace treaties. Political control of minors. Now this is an interesting point where everybody's going to be allowed to make bids on the minors that they currently control and one outside of that to try to gain an alliance that might help them. And this is going to take some serious thinking on each of the players because they all have, their goals and plans that they're going into. And most of those seem pretty apparent. We've got these dualities of possible war. Turkey may be not really expecting Austria to attack them. On the other hand, they know that Austria has desires in that direction. So that's going to be a factor there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the turn space and write down some quick bids here. Not every country has a lot of money, though. I mean, like the Turks only have $6, and when we get to taxation, or something like that, right? Oh, geez, where do we actually get our money? I hope it wasn't back in the commercial phase. See, we get the normal taxes in the commercial, the trading taxes in the commercial phase, but I'm not sure where we get our income. That's going to take me some time to look up because I've lost track of that in the rules. I'll be back in a bit. But the best I found here in Rule 15, I find the rules for the taxation. And when I look back into the sequence of play, Rule 15 is only referenced as something called the royal phase, which doesn't really exist, but that's going to be the state, the operations, and that's where the taxation and building of military units is going to happen. So that hasn't happened yet, so we're okay there. So yeah, I'm still on the diplomacy and how much money people want to put into that. Now let me remind myself how that works. I know I went through the rules all before. I'm sorry, the minor countries. I want to see if there's a requirement to make a bid. Okay, so being the highest bidder gives you the opportunity to roll. Okay, and trying to bid a power away from somebody is more difficult. The amount of money that you bid doesn't really matter except giving you the opportunity to make that roll, right? Yeah. The only other effect to it is whether or not, you know, what your national bonus towards that country is and whether or not you have a minister. So let's take a look at where England's going with their bid, and I think I'm going to have to split this sucker into multiple videos. I thought because it's a peace turn I wouldn't have to, but England currently has a pile of cash after their trading and all that of $10 in their royal treasury. They can't touch their company treasury for this. In order to build stuff, they're going to need some money for that, but they're going to be getting $20 of revenue for that. Their most interesting country, as far as I can tell, is Portugal. They have a +2 bonus against Portugal. Portugal gives them a navy and some ability to maybe swing the tide over in Europe. Other choices might be things like Denmark. Venice can't send its fleet out of the Mediterranean. Denmark, I think, may be limited to only being, well, it's a useful area. But with the +2 on Portugal, I think that's where they want to put their bid. Now, the question is how big a bid? They don't have any miners, so they don't have to outbid anything else. Do they think a $1 bid is enough? Is basically the thing. They're going to put a bid in. No. They're going to put $2 into Portugal. And I'll just mark that here. I can't write a little pound sign thing. And I'll pull that money off to use on that. And I'm going to be going through this kind of thinking with every country. So let's look at the next country in line, Austria. Austria's potential alliance bonus as well. They like Lorraine. Now, here's the problem. I don't have these, whether anyone else has these minor allies. France may well be going for Lorraine, and Lorraine's not going to help us against Turkey, which is where we're planning on going. So let's keep looking. Baden, Bavaria, Palatinate, Rome, Savoy. Venice is probably our best option here. I can't imagine That's going to help us against Turkey. Austria has miners in Lorraine and and they're special in Ansbach. So how much money does Austria have? They don't have as much as some of the other powers. They have $7. I'm potentially worried about the French going for Lorraine. So let's see if they might protect that. I'm going to. A $1 bid isn't necessarily sufficient here. I'm going to have to look up the rules. So who is the highest bidder? In case of tie, see Appendix I. Appendix I is going to be the prestige and then die roll at random. So a $1 bid would put us still in a tie with France if they put a buck in. I don't think a $1 makes any sense, so odd I'm going to go to 2, even I'm not going to go at all. I already made one roll, that's why I'm doing this. I'm not going to put a bid in on Lorraine. I'll let the French buy it from me if they, or try to buy it from me if they want. I am going to go for Venice though. Am I going to put a $2 bid in the hopes of, you know, in the worry that maybe Turkey is going to be there going into it? No. So what we're going to have here is Austria. I'll put a $1 bid on Venice. And again, I'll pull a buck out. And that's kind of how I'm going to be making my decisions throughout. I'll come back with what the total bids are, and then we'll resolve these. So you can see that quite a pile of money's been spent on miners, and in particular, we got people like France protecting some of their miners and going for Savoy. Let's start looking through some of them and see what we get. So England put a bid on Portugal for 2. Let's see who else has Portugal. Holland also put a bid of 2 on Portugal. Holland has the higher prestige, so they get the chance at it. Nobody currently owns Portugal. So they're going to be rolling 2 dice. They get a +1 for a foreign minister or a plus for any modifier. Now this is the problem here. So I gotta look. I've got a +1 for Portugal from here, so I'm gonna need a 9 or higher unless I have. Let's look at my people. I have a foreign minister. He's actually a foreign minister ×2, but that doesn't give me any real bonus. It's still just a +1. So I have +2 to the die roll. I need an 8 or better, and I get it. So now I mark down that Portugal has gone over to Holland. And again, it would be useful to have various tracks. Now the fact that Holland just got Portugal on their side, that may actually prevent the English from declaring war on Holland. It may be enough of a little skewing in there to cause them to desire to call it off, because that's an extra navy. If we look at the Portuguese forces, now somewhere they actually trace it all out, but here's what Portugal has, and actually 2 extra fleets. That's going to change the balance significantly. So Holland getting that may prevent a war. I'm going to handle the rest of these offline because it's kind of a painful procedure to look into all of these. If this was not a solo game, everybody would be kind of helping out, but in this kind of situation, it's kind of tough. I can mark it off like this to help me, but then, you know, I'll go on to Venice. Did anybody else go for Venice? No. So we look at Austria's benefits and whether or not they have, and they do, a bonus leader. I'll come back with a report on what changed hands. So I cheated with my bid for Austria on Venice. Since I own Istria, and that is a contested province owned by Venice, I'm not able to actually engage in that diplomacy. There's nothing else that I terribly wanted that I could have gotten control of. So I'm just going to reverse the money and give Austria back their buck for that. Kind of having to go through these one at a time. So after that, I look at Russia's bid on Denmark. That got overbid by Sweden. So Sweden's $3 bid is going to take play. Now here's the problem. France already controls Denmark. So this becomes a different kind of effect. Now Sweden, over here, and there is a chart in the appendices, but I don't feel like digging through them. This is actually easier right now. Sweden has a +1 on Denmark. France does not have any bonus on Denmark. Okay, so right now I'm at +1, but I'm going to be at a -1 because Louis gives me a Minister of State position. Which means I'm at neutral on getting Denmark, trying to strip it away from the French. I hope I don't own... I might own territory of... Denmark may have claim to Scania or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so my bid on Denmark was a failure. So instead, and that was a big $3 bid, and there was nothing else I would have gone. I might have gone for Oldenburg here. Or Hanover, but we'll just negate that as a false bid. That means the Russian $2 bid on Denmark is real. So instead, we look for Russia. And you know, this all cleans up as you get more familiar, but damn. Russia has a +2 on Denmark, no leadership, make it a -1, so they're on a net of +1 on Denmark. Now, it's already controlled, so we were at +1 net, and we're not going to get control of it. We get a 10 + 1 is 11. Denmark is now neutral, so France loses Denmark. Russia may not have realized that Denmark was aligned when they put their bid, but it's a legal bid, so I allow it to go. All right, and then let's see, our next one is Prussia going into Bavaria. Poland's also going for Bavaria. And we can see, we just roll a die to see which one gets a shot at it. And I'm going to give that shot to Poland. Bavaria is not terribly interesting to Poland, except that it gives them some additional protection against Prussia or Austria. And in both cases, they just bid $1 on it. So now we see what Poland's advantage here is. And they have a +2 on Bavaria. They have no bonuses for leaders here. So they're going to get Bavaria, and I'll continue on. These I got to try to remember. So Portugal went to the Dutch. They get a PP for that. Venice didn't go anywhere. Denmark left France, so they lose a PP for that. And who just got Bavaria? Poland got Bavaria. So they're going to gain 1 for that. It's funny, those colors are so similar. So I got to worry about that too, the political implications of taking and losing control. The natural dissolution of control doesn't cause a PP loss. You guys are rolling incredibly high. I'm wondering if they're balanced or not. Spain ended up getting Savoy, and Turkey got, and it's fairly easy for them, they have like a +3 bonus plus another 4th bonus. They got Morocco, Maghreb. So that's gotten us through to, let's see, we're on the declaration of war period. And I'm going to need a little break to get to that, to get to and through that. I'm just doing this all on one video. I know it's going to be long, but the hell with it. A sign of how badly organized the rules to this are. There's a whole political section which I was in. Well, I'm on the Declaration of War section, several pages later, after all kinds of military, the economics of the military and everything, we get to the war section where you actually get to declare war, which handles the casus belli. Actually, we've gone through peace, we've gone through everything else in the rule book. It's just really poorly laid out in terms of being able to achieve, get to the page you need. It may not have been so bad if it was a bound rule book, but you know, with the loose pages, it means that I'm going to have to page back and forth and all over the place, and it's just a royal mess. I mean, you have to page back and forth anyway. All right. So, we have a series of declarations of war being prepared here that we already know. We know that France is planning on a declaration against Spain. Now, is Spain planning one? No. Spain has this worry that France is going to declare war on them, so they're holding off. Likewise, England and the Netherlands are holding off. Turkey is holding off. Austria is planning on a declaration on Turkey. Russia is doing one against Poland again. Poland's going to hold off simply because of that threat. And I think we've already got an alliance between Sweden and Spain. And I think these are open. There's no hidden and secret alliances in here. So, how do we determine who gets to make the first declaration of war? So, we've got a number of free casus belli being declared here. France is going to use theirs, England's using theirs, Russia's using theirs, and that's it. Austria is not a free casus belli. So if somebody else declared war on Turkey, Austria would have to enter that war instead, presumably. Okay, now we roll a die modified by the power of foreign minister out of these countries. So, looks to me like we have 1E on France. France, England, Russia are the only ones that are doing it. So, I guess we actually have to roll because I can't figure the odds out otherwise. So France is going to have a +1, and they get a roll of 2. We'll use red for England. Russia gets the first declaration of war. This probably isn't going to matter because the wars are going to fall out into pairings. Okay. So I should mark this down on here, and I will. Russia's declaring war on Poland. Poland has no allies, so they can't make any call, and there's no one else who can enter this war. Nobody who has an alliance, and nobody who can just jump in due to their own alliance. Do we have any minor allies here? Russia does not. Poland has Saxony and Bavaria. Now, there's a problem here in that there's no easy way to get troops from Saxony or Bavaria over to Poland. If this was a war involving the Holy Roman Empire, they would have some ability to transit, or if they had an alliance of some sort with either Prussia or Austria, they would be able to transit. But as it stands, there's no reason for them to call that in. So we're going to have a simple war there. So then the next one, well, I don't know who gets the next war. I guess we'll roll the same thing with France being yellow at a +1. France is going to get the next war. France, again, these are free casus belli, so they're not costing any political points. France is declaring war on Spain. And because this is the first turn of the war, Sweden is able to come in for free. Now, this one's more complicated because France has Baden and the Palatinate, which they're going to want to try to bring, well, which they must roll to see if they come in. They don't even have an option here. Spain has Savoy, which they also must roll. So let's see what our rolls are there, and then we'll have to set up the minors. Damned if I know where the minors enter in here. That may be back in the political rules. So I'm going to have to take a pause and hunt that rule down. If it's just, you know, an affinity for the AWE games, or the fact that these are just simple text columns, very easy to remember where things are in general. Yes, I've had things I haven't been able to find, and that's always been a problem with AWE games, but I was able to guess where this was going to be. If this was in a book, it would have been trivial, really. But as it is now, I've got like 3 piles of pages. It's under the minor powers country. A totally ridiculous place to put things. But in a sense, the fact that things are in the wrong places, and large blocks of things are in the wrong places, it actually kind of sinks it into my memory in a weird sort of way. All I can say is, man, these rules suck, but I seem to be able to navigate them better than I can some better rules, like procedural designs and such now, where I have no idea where to find things. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is looking at, let's look at the French allies first, Baden and Palatinate. On a 4 through 6, they enter the war. I don't have any choice in this from what I understand. So Baden, yes. Palatinate, no. And now I'm going to hunt down the troops of Baden, if I can figure out what they are. That'll probably be these guys who say Baden on them. They have a BD as their symbol, but there's no way I can tell for sure whose symbol is going to be what. And we'll put them in Baden. Now, who else was in this? Spain has Savoy, which they have to check. And that does not come in. And Sweden has no allies. I don't think there's any other allies coming in on there. So now we have the third war. And we flip back over to this section of the rules. No, this ain't it. I wonder where it was. I lost my page. Well, we'll go back. We did the Russian War already, so it's the Anglo-Austrian War, or Anglo-Holland War, or Anglo-Dutch War I'm worried about. Holland has... Oh, no, they're not declaring war because of Portugal. They chose not to. So forget that. So the third war doesn't happen, and I've got to write down these wars. I wasn't planning on doing it, and then, you know, I walk away. So what we have a Russo-Polish War and a Franco-Spanish, and we'll give Sweden in there too, war. All right. But now we've still got a loose person who wants to declare war. We have the Austrians who want to declare war. Now this is with a casus belli. You can't even declare a war without one. And we have to try to find where the rule for that is. I think it... okay, if you want to do a normal casus belli, you have to roll a die. On a 1 through 4, it doesn't happen. On a 5 through 6, you're going to lose 3 temporary prestige in order to declare the war. But if you have a foreign minister, which I do. Who the hell is this? Bisola? I don't know the name. So we have what, a +1 to the die roll? Now we apply a modifier. Okay, so we got to find rule 6.2, which means paging. 6.2 states that a foreign minister gets a +1 bonus for control of minor countries. That's not what we're dealing with here. Since he has, it's not really covered at all in the rule, but since he's an E2, I'm assuming he has a +2 to the basis, so he only needs a 2 or higher to succeed, or sorry, a 3 or higher to succeed in the roll. He does not get it, so we don't have an Austro-Turkish war either. Poland can't make a DOW. All right. So, none of those wars take effect this turn, though. These are declarations during a peace turn, and they will take, they'll actually become effective during the war turn next, which is going to be a fall turn of next year. I think it's next year. Damned if I know. Okay. Because what this may say, I can't read my French. Whoa. This commences in 1661 in a period of peace general. What it may mean is that the 1661 turn is actually the first war turn, and we're going to commence the war in the fall of 1661. That actually makes more sense to me, that when the peace ends, so this is the end of a general peace turn, everything else has been settled. Let's play it that way. You know, who knows what they actually mean. I can't read the French well enough in the scenario book, and you know, my wife's French is much better, but there are, you know, sort of implications and colorings and tones to the writing that's not going to come across to her. So, you know, I'm going to just shoot from the hip here. So that's how I'm going to do that, is that it will be 1661 when I start. Now, we are still in the middle of the political phase, so we got to find that page again, because territorial claims, yes. Okay. So a player can create a territorial claim here. And let's see where the rules for that may be. Yeah, they're all the way over here, past things about annexations and all kind of stuff like that. So, at this point, people are allowed to buy claims, essentially. And that costs 2 political points. These are generally ways of manufacturing a military, a casus belli, basically. And I don't feel like anybody is in any particular desire to do that right now. So we're going to hold off on that, which puts us back to this little packet of rules here. The next page in that, money grants. People can just give cash outright, and then we also have cession of territory to one another. That also, I don't see any real plan for any of that. There's a plan for the Spanish, perhaps, to provide an indemnity, not an indemnity, but military aid to the Swedes, because the Swedes are a poor power. But just handing cash to one another doesn't make a lot of sense at this point. It may be that actually Sweden will hand cash to the Spaniards eventually to help them pay off their debt, but we're not likely to do that. Okay, so that means we are done, I think, with the political stage, or whatever, and we go to the royal phase. And that, shit. Is this rule 15 here, and the stacking is getting to be a mess, and it's what's causing that shit. Okay, so at this point we get to choose our taxation, and for each country we have to make a decision here. They're going to get tax levels equal to the tax value of their national region. Now, we're not actually at war right now, which means everybody's just going to get their base taxation. And that's actually written down. So I'm just going to push that money onto the different powers. Now, while I'm doing this, you have to note there are certain events that are affecting this taxation, but there's also the need to remember all the events that the powers have. This is the difficulty of playing a game like this solo with the event shits. I found this trouble in, oh, what was the other one that caused this regular? Le Grand Guerre, with all its powers, and event chits, definitely had this issue where I couldn't remember everything that was modifying, along with the technology chits. Russia a little bit less so, but in this particular case, I have some that don't come into effect. So one of the first ones that I noticed, geez, I should have taken this into effect, was this corruption, which allows you to bribe a minister. I had to find these because I'd put them off somewhere else. Among other things, it could have canceled the declaration of war, but not the one that Russia has against Poland at the beginning of the game, because that was a freebie, a free casus belli. Casus bellum? I don't remember which is the... Okay, but what we do have that's of value is number 25 here, and I think I'm going to want to play that. The way I play that is I make an event roll, and I'm going to need a 5 or more for Austria to take advantage of it. You could say, well, wouldn't you want to hold this until a turn where you are going to war? And the answer to that is yes, but because you see there's this depreciation that happens to capital that's sitting in the Royal Treasury. The reason I don't want to is, what if the remix comes up, right? None of these really take place here. I could have prevented, say, a Russian alliance in that. So I need a 5 or more for this to work, and I get it. So Austria is going to be affected by that, and I don't remember what it does. It's number 25, which is going to be an extra buck on each area. So Austria is going to get a pile of money this turn. They still can only recruit a couple of regiments. In the long run, I'm not quite sure what that all means. Austria has, I think, free trade, so they're not going to be starting a trading company up anytime soon. Not that they could do that out of cash on hand. It had some generic effects also as well. The third off the money that both Holland and the Turks pulled in. Now, the Holland one is gone. That was a one-turn event, but the Turkish one's going to stick around until the next remix shows up. Because we're not formally at war yet, we're still in a peace turn. Next turn changes that, and although there's no taxation next turn, I think. Some of the levers of power that are available to countries at war, reducing or increasing taxation, are not available. So, the next thing we go to is spending, and let's take a look at what we have to do with those. First, we have to pay interest on our public debt, and that's simply going to be 20% of the current outstanding debt. There's no war debt yet. No subsidies can be made yet, which is kind of weird because we're sort of at war, but I would say that only affects during a war turn. And then we have to worry about the interest payment, pensions, maintenance, and recruitment. Well, I'm going to have to find some of those rules. The interest payment I'm already doing here. Pensions, I don't think I'm allowed to throw pensions into play except when I'm in at war. I'll have to look that up. But the maintenance cost per units is the thing I'm really not sure of where that is. I think it's like $1 each. But the recruitment costs is $2 or $3 depending on the country, and somebody has a penalty. I think it's Prussia has a penalty from inflation where they're going to have to pay $1 for each extra unit, so they may not want to produce things. So I'll have to find those rules and try to figure them out. Again, you know, it's so painful to learn something this different, this new. I approach this with an easier mind than some other games for whatever reason. So I took care of I gotta find my page as to what the order of all of this is. I took care of the interest payment. There are no pensions in play currently, so I don't have to pay any of those off. There is, however, maintenance costs, and I found the maintenance costs somewhere. I thought I had them. Shit. That's recruitment costs. I had maintenance somewhere. Here it is. So this is going to be a simple multiplication Number of regiments times 0.2, ignoring feudal and minor allies. And fleets times 0.3. Fleets that are actually at sea are going to cost an additional amount, I guess. And then fortresses, depots, and artillery are free. So, this is always rounded up. So, for every 5 regiments, I have to pay $1, basically. This is kind of painful because finding and counting what I have on the board is not going to be the most trivial thing to do. At least at first. That maintenance cost was a pain in the ass. Basically what I have to do is search through every counter, because if there's anything that counts as a feudal core that's on the map, now none of them are on the map to begin with, which is why Russia only has 1 piece. So I actually just had to count the pieces, but you got to make sure these guys don't count because they're depots or artillery and such not. So it is sort of an irritation. It seems more difficult than, say, how you keep track of things in EU, or certainly Empires and Arms, where you don't really worry about the number of pieces you have on the board. But I much prefer a game where there is a maintenance cost. EIA has kind of the problem that, you can just build your army up and build it up and build it up. So as long as you're in peace, you're just getting stronger and stronger. This game has an absolute limit to what you can do, because whatever armies you have on the board, you are going to pay for. And I like that in this and in EU. In EU, eventually it becomes not a big deal to pay for a huge army. I'm guessing probably there are times in this, if you have a big trading company or something, well, that's not going to bring you much money for your actual country. So, what it really comes down to is the size of your land taxation base is largely what's going to determine how big a military you can even, maintain. And of course, countermix is going to come in too, but my hope is actually that countermix doesn't become the main limitation. So now, after doing maintenance, depreciation. That's got to be in here somewhere. Yeah, somewhere. God knows where. I know that there is a depreciation. I just don't know what it is, what percentage it is. Maybe it's something like 20% of your cash on hand. I'm going to have to find that now. That's not where we are. We're on during interest payment. I think this is when you're allowed to reduce your debt. Again, it's not clear here, but during a general peace turn, you may attempt to reduce debt by spending. So let's take a look at some of the people who are interested in reducing debt. Let's look country by country. England, we're not going to war, so it seems like a good idea. However, this is done by spending APP. It's not done by cash. Ooh, painful. Spending prestige means I'd be dropping from a 16 down to a 15. Of course, I'm going to naturally head that way anyway. It seems like a good idea at this stage in the game to retire debt. So let's see. We'll spend a PP. Do we have a minister skill of any type? No. If we spend multiple PP, we could get a bonus on the die roll. We're not that terribly interested, so I'm going to just spend 1 PP and hope that I can get a 5. Jeez. Let's spend 2 PP. Now, 2 doesn't help us. Let's just spend 1. I don't know. Is the debt really hurting me? I mean, I pay $1 a turn on that debt. Yeah, the hell with it. I'm not going to try to retire my debt. All right. So let's look at the next one. Austria. Austria is not going to war. They have a bigger debt. How much political point can they expend? Well, they can certainly expend 1 because they're not it costs them a victory point, but see, here's the problem. Whatever you spend, you're going to be moving towards that 15 again. if it's a general peace turn. The problem is if I can maintain this position during war. Yeah, well, this is a general peace turn. I am going to spend 1 and make a roll to try to retire some of the Austrian debt. I have a minister of some sort. It doesn't matter what kind. So that gives me... Oh, England gets an automatic +1. Yeah, let's do England's as well. England's going to try to decrease theirs. So there are +2 on the die roll, 1 for the PP and 1 for the other. And they managed to reduce their debt. So I just get to erase that. And that's a buck a turn that they're not going to be spending on maintaining that. And as long as they stay out of war, they should be able to keep that from happening. And Austria is also going to spend a PP, and they're at +2 on their die roll. 5 is a no effect, so they don't get it. And I'll continue with some of the other countries. Some of them may not choose to do it. I thought you had to actually spend cash to reduce your debt. But no, you just raise taxes, essentially. Some reductions. I don't really know who. England got theirs down. Other people made tries, like Prussia, Turkey, and they didn't really succeed. Some people, like Spain, are sitting looking at a war. They don't really want to try to retire their debt at this point. The reason being the prestige is important. France actually took one and took a heavy hit. I don't know if they retired theirs successfully. They may have gotten a bad roll. Yeah, it doesn't look like they retired their $5 debt. Actually, maybe I didn't try to. I think I was down to 14. Okay, so at this point we're looking at building new units. Again, I want to take a look at England first. Now, there's a few things in play here. First of all, since England's at peace right now, they must respect their limits. You can violate your limits when you're at war, and I don't know if you're at war right now, but I think so, if you're, say, France and Spain and such not. But they're only allowed to build 2 regiments or fleets. However, their fleets only count as half. Now, fleets are the important thing to me. I can't rebuild them, though. In order to build more fleet, I have to do an increase of my naval structure, because right now my naval structure is 7, and that's how many ships I have. Given my situation, I want to focus on building navies. But I think I'm only allowed to improve that by 1. If I can find the rules on it, there we go. You can only make 1 such attempt per turn. I don't have a naval minister. There's no modifier for being England. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend £5. Now, I think this counts against my production, so I'll only be able to build 1 regiment as well. But we'll take a shot at this, and I exchange a dime for a nickel. I'm using the coins at face value here, essentially. So in order to succeed, I need a 5 or a 6 on the yellow die, and the red die has to be less than the yellow die. And I do not get that, so I wasted $5. Now, I'm going to say there was a recruitment attempt in place there. I'm not sure if that's what's intended, but that means now I'll hunt down 1 regiment. Now, if it's a... it doesn't really matter what it is. In fact, I may not be terribly interested in recruiting a regiment, but if it's just a regular good old infantry regiment, and that's probably what I want to build. What are these? These are Irish, I think. I can't quite see, but it looks like there's something there. I think these are Irish, with names like Cardigans and the Black Watch. Black Watch is Scottish. So those must be Scots. And these are the Irish here. So I could produce them if I so desired. Actually, producing an Irish unit seems appealing to me. I have nothing to defend Ireland. So I'm going to spend my $2 on an Irish unit as well. And that fulfills my entire capability to build, given that it's a peace turn. And they're going to show up in Ulster, of course. I'll look at everybody else. Now, if people are at war, they're able to exceed that. Here comes the tricky thing. I think all these feudal levies show up on the map for free, and then I can buy additional ones at £1 each, because there are more available for these countries. I'm not sure what it's supposed to mean in the scenario rules, but there seems to be a number of feudal levies that you get, but there are additional ones that are available for territories that, say, Russia still owns, because every Russian unit is a feudal unit in this scenario. So I'll take care of that, and here's the thing, the Polish feudal regions actually match the numbers properly. The Russian ones don't, but that's because all the Russian armies are converted to feudal. So I think I'm doing things kind of right by saying, hey, it may not be. That may just be a coincidence there, but maybe I'm doing things right by saying, hey, the Russians have to buy their additional feudal core. They have a certain fixed amount just at this time because they're in this special period. Because the only Polish feudal unit that I think I have left, if I'm doing things right, who the hell knows? I got this one too. Wait, I have this Galicia Rumegia. Yeah, no, I've got an extra one here, I think. I don't know. You know, I just really don't know. I thought I only had this Ukrainian one left, but maybe I'm wrong. And maybe I just can't count. It looked like I had them all, but I can't keep track of this anymore. This whole method of regimental units being built in specific areas, it may serve a certain realism purpose, but man, it is a pain in the royal ass to track compared to simple strength point counters that EU or EIA have, or War and Peace. It's a real pain in the ass here. It does provide, I think, a certain nice limit on what you can build and where it goes, but I feel like you need almost this player mat to keep track of units I can build, units that, you know, are off to the side and haven't yet, and I haven't figured out how to handle that yet. Trying to track them just in my counter trace is not working at all. The big question comes up, am I at war for recruitment? Can I exceed my limits? In particular, Spain has this really slow buildup. And it almost doesn't make sense. You know, I've already declared war. I should be at war, but I'm not in a war turn. Again, not clearly defined in these rules. Probably not in the original, from what I understand of, you know, AWE's signification. It is important because if I'm at war, I have to make peasant reaction checks for the countries that are. I'm assuming that I am at war. Now let me go back and see what I've done and what I haven't. So I've done England and Austria not at war. Russia's at war. Have I used up all their money? Yes. So let's take a quick look. So I've got to roll 2 dice. If the yellow die is a 6, there's a reaction to recruitment. I didn't exceed my values. If the red die is greater than the yellow, I may get some unrest. Okay, so I'm good with Russia. Let's keep looking. Prussia, no problem. France, also same situation. Okay, red die is greater than the yellow. I checked the other thing. I'm going to get an unrest marker somewhere. That's actually my choice where the hell to put it. And that's going to reduce my money. Now, I don't know how to get rid of unrest, but I'm going to put it out here in the Vendy. That's going to reduce my income next turn. But at least it's not interfering with anything, I think. Poland's got this problem. Again, I didn't exceed my builds. Red die is greater than yellow. I got 2. I'm going to get 2 unrest markers in Poland. I will put them... I can't put it here because, well, yeah, I can. I think that was a starting unit rather than one that I purchased because it's, well, not a starting unit, but one of my damn feudals. I don't know. What's the effect of unrest? Damned if it says here. Shit. effects. They prevent you from controlling tax. A revolt is controlled. No power can exert. Yeah, as far as I can see, I can build my troops where that is. How do I get rid of it? I actually fight the rebel militia if it's in revolt, but I don't think I can do anything about a province that's in unrest except through economic means or peacetime effects. So that's this set of paper. Shit. I've got another paper that I've lost in this pile of loose papers, but now I'm on Spain, and Spain's in this interesting position. I got no idea where my other paper is. I don't know where to put this shit. Just so many loose papers here. Spain's in an interesting position because they can only build 2 units, and I built those 2, but now I can exceed that. Now, if I exceed that, I get a modifier to my yellow die roll. So it looks like it's +1 per additional unit that I build. The reason I want to build is I still have a lot of money. I have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bucks. So that's like 3 cav I can build. Now, I think I'm allowed to build more fucking artillery here. Oh, here's the piece of paper I was looking for, and I gotta put this one here back so I don't lose them. Over on this book, Spain's allowed to build 2 additional artillery. So one of the things, this is not a regiment or another dinker-danker, is I'll build more artillery here. That costs me 3 of my bucks. That way I don't have to make a roll for that. But now I'm out of, now my money is spent on actual units. So if I build 2 extra cav, let's see if I can find 2 cav that work, and I'll stick my stubby fingers in here and see what I've got. Granada, Andalusia, that's not in a great location. Aragon, Navarre, that's kind of nice. So there's 1. And Galicia, Asturias, which is going to be up here. That's fine. So I've built 2 additional units, which means I have a +2 to the yellow die roll. So now on a 4 or greater, I've got a conscription issue. And I get away cheap. The red die is greater than the yellow, though, so I'm going to be getting 2 unrest markers. And I want to find cheap places to put that. I'll put them down in here, which is going to cost me, again, some tax base there. And now I go through the next 3. And this has taken about an hour and a half to do the economics. It is at least as hard as once I get used to the EU economic phase, and it doesn't cover anywhere near as much complexity. And certainly the military side of this is tremendously more difficult because I'm hunting down individual pieces instead of just, oh yeah, I can build 2 armies this turn, and I just subtract the money off the sheet. The money's not a big deal. The big deal is the counters being individually linked to locations, having to search through them, having to try to read the backs of these little counters, and then figure out if they fit this weird script here. Unfortunately, they really did not make this a playable game in terms of components. They really went out of their way to make it difficult to play. And they left things out, right? I mean, they left out control markers, which could have been used, and I believe that anybody who plays this game reasonably often probably has some sort of player mat to keep track of what pieces I can play on the board and which ones are out of play for this, at this point, because I haven't captured the territories they're in, or because this chart says I don't have them for this scenario, or whatever. If they cheated a little bit, not a big deal, I fixed it. Anyway, but if there's multiple revolt markers that have to, or unrest markers that have to be placed in the same time, maybe unrest, maybe not revolt, I don't know. Whatever, several markers. One has to go in a more valuable place than the other. So I couldn't put both the Spaniards in the half space or both the Swedes. So I rearranged those so that I've got at least a 1-point region in each case. But that's going to definitely hinder the points. Now that's all my building has taken into effect, and we've got the Turks having built here. Now we come to this depreciation, and I got to find that in the rules as well. Strangely enough, this is not very easily handled. This is not in order as far as I can see. I guess this is the effect of increased taxation on peasantry within the pacification, but it's not in the pacification, it's in the revolts, which are over here, and you know, it's just not making any damn sense. But the ordering of this obviously doesn't work the way it's stated. Essentially, I'm guessing that one gets some kind of check, gets some kind of, you know, they get some kind of pattern to playing, as I have in EU, and they can handle it. But man, making that first hump, when you're trying to follow the actual rules to get it to play, that doesn't work. I am going to pull out another counter tray and put the counters that are not available right now into that counter tray, put it aside. That way it's not going to confuse me any longer. That includes artillery, depots, all kind of crap out of here, and regiments that can't be constructed yet. And things from miners that don't exist, just to get them out of my mind, because they're causing nothing but problems here. Here we go. Here's depreciation. So we're going to roll a die, and this is, I guess each country rolls it on their own. Now, did I want to provide a subsidy? Spain doesn't really want to take out 10 more pounds in debt, or 10 more francs of debt, in order to try to produce some Swedish troops that may or may not actually be able to serve it very well. They want to see what the Swedes are doing before they make such a painful choice. So they're not going to provide Sweden with a subsidy. So we look for that rule I had just a little while ago. I don't think it's where I thought it was, though. It's over here under 15, while we've had to go into 16 for other things. So now for each country, I guess I'm going to make a roll here, and with specific modifiers for the country, and see how much of their current income they are going to just, or their current treasury, they're just going to lose. Most of the countries, at least the ones at war, Russia and Poland, well, most of them have some money left. And they certainly could have spent that money. So France could have increased their chance of unrest by building another unit. But, you know, there's only so much of this I can take. The depreciation is painful, especially for Prussia. Some of these others had big piles of money, like Holland and England, not going to war and not being able to build a lot of stuff. But Prussia chose not to build anything because of the event that they had sitting on them that cost them $1 more. They figured, well, how bad could it be? It's probably around 20%. No, they got a 50% roll, lost half the cash they had. They could have easily built, like, I think a couple of artillery had they, they could only build one more, I think. I think that's what it means. I can't tell anymore. Anyway, I think we're at the end of the economic phase. God knows, I hope so. Let me see if there's anything that I didn't get done here. I think I took care of all of this, which means we flip back to the beginning. Again, you know, in EU, I gotta reshuffle this whole, or restack this thing so I can handle it. But now we're at the naval phase, and we get to start repositioning our ships where they're gonna go. I don't know what to do. I think I'm going to load this one up just because it's getting ridiculously long.